It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover the very latest in property news every morning, 7 days a week, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as Amazon. And it is a Thursday morning, April the 25th, and Anzac Day today. A time of remembrance, a time of reflection, a time long ago in history to never forget the sacrifices that were made. And if you got up nice and early this morning to attend one of the Anzac dawn services, well done to you. It always amazes me at just how many younger people these days are now attending dawn services around the country. Well, last week you may have heard and seen the massive rain that fell in Dubai. And we're going to, in just a moment, catch up with our friend there on the ground, Mario Volpi. But they had the biggest downpour in 75 years. And there was 255 millimetres in less than 24 hours. And if you saw pictures of the airport that was closed, what a sight. The entire region was thrown into chaos. And you might be thinking about moving to Dubai because all over the world people are moving into the UAE in unprecedented numbers. And Lillian is one of those people who moved to Dubai from the Gold Coast. So let's go to you, Lillian, in Dubai. A lot of rain, as I mentioned last week, that hit Dubai and the UAE.
It's a very unfortunate outcome of climate change that we have to deal with these natural disasters more and more, and they're happening in every country. But for Dubai this week, it was crazy. You only have to go on social media to see thousands of videos of the roads flooded, water just pouring into people's homes, villas, apartments, shops. There's one crazy video of the Mall of the Emirates where water's just pouring into a shop. There's furniture flying off high-rise buildings because it wasn't only rain, it was wind, really strong winds. There were lightning storms. Of course, the Burj got hit several times, and cars with water nearly to the roof. Personally, it was quite scary for me. I'm in a high-rise apartment and I had water leaking through the facade. The light chandeliers were swaying. And the building was making this creaking sound like a boat. And the final straw for me was actually when the kitchen doors flew open because of the swaying of the building. And I thought, I'm going to get out of here. And I went down to the ground floor lobby. There were about maybe 30 other residents there that were just hanging out because they were too scared and they just wanted to be with other people.
Yeah, that is such a scary situation. And Mario, let's come to you because you have said to me in the past that it only rains a few times each year, but it is, of course, raining more than that now. And surely something has to be done about the fact that stormwater pipes were never, ever put into Dubai. And the problem is, when it rains, the water's got nowhere to go. They've got to do something about that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I stand by what I say. Dubai doesn't get that much rainfall over the year. It is a few days. Actually, as I've been here over the years, it's increased. It's gone from, a day or two to 4 or 5 days to actually, when you add up the whole year, maybe into a week or two's worth of rain. But it does often lead to localized flooding and a bit of damage to buildings, especially villas and townhouses. But I put this down to the way of construction and drainage, or should I say lack of drainage. Given that it rains only for a few, days in the year.
Stop saying that. No, hang on. Stop saying that. It's raining more than that across a year.
Well, it is now, but honestly, the point I'm going to try and make here is that dealing with the damage rather than spending the money in preventing the damage seems to be the order of the day, because Dubai doesn't have much in the way of drainage also. So there's nowhere for the rain to go. When we talk about the villas and townhouses, the construction of the flat roofs often, and they don't normally have slanted roofs, because there's no drainage, the water just sits there in a pond and eventually seeps through. And that's why you get water pouring into houses and villas. I mean, I don't know quite about the swaying of buildings. Mine was pretty solid, but it is scary times because it's not something that you expect when you come to the desert.
And something's got to give, really, because one of the things that we talk about is the way that the local government has this ability to be able to swing from left to right rather quickly and adapt. We use that word pivot. Now, I'm sure, Mario, that they're going to be in their think tank saying, well, we are carrying on with the construction in Dubai. There are more and more buildings, which means that when there is a flooding event, more properties are going to be affected. So they are going to, at some point, they're going to have to address it. Otherwise, this is just going to be a mounting problem that is going to get worse.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. And sort of storm-proofing the properties is something that I think as we go forward, they should do it from the source, from the construction, and actually use either better materials or better designs. This way, when it does rain, no matter how hard, it won't affect it as much as it has recently. From that point of view, we will see changes. For the older buildings, well, I guess it's then just damage limitation.
Yeah, and the cleanup is continuing, as you say. I understand that different heads of government entities have been spoken to on ways to be more prepared. Now, do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, it was reported that Dubai's Crown Prince, Sheikh Hamdan, has directed heads of government entities to develop a proactive plan to enhance Dubai's preparedness for dealing with unexpected weather conditions. Quite what these plans are have yet to be disclosed, but I'm sure they will include changes to the fabric of how property, especially villas and townhouses, are built. Drainage, for example, putting in storm drains is very important, maybe building these properties on slightly elevated land. I mean, most of the roofs on villas are flat. And so I'm sure that in the future, roofs will have a 10 or perhaps a 20-degree tilt to allow for water to run into gullies and drain pipes.
Yeah, and I do hate to say this, but normally the people that have to pay for this is the poor old property owner. Are you hearing any rumblings or suggestions on costs being paid by people? Because not all insurance fine print is the same.
Well, I suspect that if we're talking about tower blocks and things, for sure, service charges will need to be increased in order to allow for maintenance, to make windows and seals storm-proof in towers, as I mentioned, drainage and also on balconies, because attention has to be paid to this. I mean, multi-million pound cars, for example, were left stranded in garages due to the flooding. And talking about insurance companies, well, the storm obviously took everybody by surprise, but insurance companies, as usual, have given their response, and many people are not happy with the sort of default answers. Just to give you a clue, if you have a car that was in a garage that was affected by the rain and the water, then they will actually be paying out on that. However, what they're now starting to say, because of there's so many claims, is that if you are out driving in the rain, then they may not necessarily pay out, because they're saying, well, you shouldn't have been out knowing the conditions.
Yeah, this is the vagaries of insurance companies. I mean, people right now, as you say, they're dealing with the insurance companies. And again, I've seen this happen before with insurance companies putting up the premiums. We will talk about that in just a moment. But it's an odd thing regarding driving your car and being caught out. Yeah, so some developers, I understand, they're doing the right thing. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, Craig. I mean, at the beginning, it was Emaar. Emaar were one of the first developers to actually come out and say that they would help, closely followed by MAG. And they said they would repair all the properties in their communities which were damaged during the heavy rains, and more importantly, free of costs. Now, this will obviously go some way to alleviate the suffering that some homeowners or landlords have faced since the storm hit. But this action will no doubt put pressure on other developers to follow suit. Otherwise, future buyers may look unfavorably on those developers that have not helped during these difficult times, perhaps preferring to buy from companies such as EMAR or MAG in the future, knowing that should anything happen again, these companies would step up.
No, it is a very relevant point. So what the developer, especially one of the top four, they can either say, no, not going to help you, or they step into this whole PR position. And that's what it is. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a PR situation where they're going to get a lot of added press value, and the whole way that somebody might perceive a developer is enhanced. And that's what you've got to be thinking. You've always got to be ahead of the curve. And the other point to what you just raised is when you are buying a property, just ask about mitigation. What happens in that situation of something that floods your property out?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully going forward, and if we have these episodes again, hopefully developers will have come to the table and, as we say, mitigate these issues by creating more storm drains, proper roofs, downpipes, guttering, this kind of thing, better seals. So hopefully we won't have that problem. But if they don't, then clearly the developers that have stepped up to the mark, like EMAR and MAG, are undoubtedly going to be ahead of other people, because I definitely wouldn't want to buy a property that either hasn't been built to the standards of these future weather conditions, because I don't want to paint the picture that these developers are not building good quality housing. They are, but these are extraordinary times. And of course, they've been inundated with this water. It's never happened as much as it has. So perhaps going forward, if they are going to change things or step up to the mark, then people will have that choice. But the ones that don't, I think are missing a trick. But you're right, it is a PR opportunity, and definitely one that the two developers that I mentioned have jumped on straight away.
Yeah, because, MAG and EMAR, we're talking about them in a positive way because what they're doing for you. Now, that's the developers. I just want to come back to keeping a watchful eye on what you are being charged when it comes to premiums with your insurance policies. It is very well documented that global warming and the extortion in some cases with insurance companies overcharging you with jacked up prices doesn't really hold up with the maths of property damage caused through global events. Yes, everybody knows and everybody expects premiums to move up as a result of floods and the droughts, etc., but not beyond the metric of actual damage and heightened risks to insurance companies. Experts have already said some companies only see floods as a way of overcharging premiums. So be very, very careful in all of that.
Yeah, but Craig, don't forget, I mean, today we're talking about floods and things. Who hasn't had hassle dealing with insurance, whether it's theft, whether it's damage, in this case, floods? We have to either read the small print, we then find out that something isn't covered. You think you're buying these premiums to cover yourself. And then there's always a battle with insurance companies. We know that. It comes part and parcel of the game, really.
Exactly. All right, we'll leave it there. Great to chat. Not so great to be talking about people being maybe a little bit ripped off when it comes to the insurance premiums and, of course, some of the damage. But I think the takeaway is don't drive your car if you've got an expensive one when it rains.
Absolutely right, yeah. But the takeaway, Craig, is this. Dubai moves quickly to put things right. That's what I want the listeners to understand as well.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
Certainly some people didn't like it. Certainly some people didn't want to go in it. And one of our many children sort of shed a few tears when we were going to be staying there one night. So look, if you don't want to stay there, you don't have to. But one of my old mates slept under the gallows. Some of our mates are as crazy as us.
The jail, it's a sad place. It is despair, depravity. There's a loss of freedom. I mean, how do you sort of go from what I just described into a more of an uplifting environment?
The first time we stepped into the building, it felt very much like an institution. And for us, I guess that guiding goal of trying to transform the very sense of how you felt when you walked in, you could almost feel like you were walking through, a Mediterranean villa or a European castle.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.